Hi, and welcome to the second episode of Unassuming Heroes podcast by me, Noel Kennedy. I have worked in education now since 2006, and what I've realised is that there is a plethora of people outside of the classroom who need to be celebrated in education. It was only a few years ago I realised that those people existed, and those people provided social, emotional, and academic progress for children. Today's guest is a guy called Tom. He's worked in the boarding setting for about 15 years, working in 4 different schools, a variety of independent and state schools. He's been a director of boarding now for as long as I've known him, which is maybe about 10 years now. Tom is a boarding expert, but he's also a safeguarding expert. He is an absolutely fabulous person. I encourage you to listen. He is all about children making progress. He is all about boarding. And if you've never seen boarding before or been in a school with boarding, I was stupid, and I use the word stupid on purpose. I thought people who worked in boarding woke up in the morning, packed their kids off to school like we do as parents. If you're not a parent, as parents do. Send them off to school, they come home, give them some food and send them to bed, because they're all old enough just to get on with their own lives. And boy, was I wrong. Tom opened my eyes to the actual world of boarding. Late nights, on call, weekends, sometimes working from 6 to maybe midnight because of staff shortages or just staff rotations, or just because you're the important director of boarding. As you know, this podcast is a scratch at the surface, so it's only about 10 minutes. But if you do want to talk to Tom in any more depth or get his knowledge or insight, please contact me or contact Tom via LinkedIn. Hopefully you enjoy it. Thank you. Hey, Tom, you all right?
Hey, Noel, really good to see you after a couple of years. I'm well, thanks.
Yeah, it's good to see you. I've just done unbeknown to you, I've just done 30 seconds about you. So director of boarding, 15 years, 4 schools. Tell me what that sort of looks like.
Well, a normal day, I suppose, as you know, in education, every day is different. But your standards would be swing into breakfast around 7:30, 7:45. Make sure students are happy and up and check in with the team, so the house parent team and the boarding assistants. Then might get on with some supporting marketing work, some safeguarding work very closely in safeguarding still here at my current school. As you know, I did quite a lot of that at previous schools. It could be leadership team meetings, line management meetings. So I'm lucky to oversee sort of house parents and a deputy head of boarding and a nurse. And really it's about being present, I think. So a lot of it is around presence and checking in with lots of people, but day to day it's reviewing systems and data and making sure that they're working fit for purpose. And then, as always, you come out with lots of data, but it's using it wisely and actually taking the stuff that you really do need.
So I remember when I first met you, and I was one of those who was naive enough to say, what do they even do in boarding? They just sit around all day. They wake up in the morning, have a bit of breakfast, kick the kids into school, see them in the evening, have a jolly, have a bit of dinner, and then kick them into bed. But actually, it's more, much more than that, isn't it? And your day sort of starts, I don't know, 6-ish, because the catering team will be in and they'll be working, and because you're the director of boarding, and your day might not finish until midnight whenever the kids go to sleep at about 11. I assume in most schools that's what it's like. That's a pretty hard slog, isn't it?
Yeah, it keeps you busy. Days are extended anyway. I think the boarding day and one of the big benefits is that extended day and extended provision within the boarding context, which means then I would also be on call various times of the week, overnight, and at some weekends. So that's kind of part and parcel of it. We know that work in education is intense and requires stamina, and it probably requires a bit more in a boarding context when you have that really long extended day. But it is incredibly fulfilling, and you do see students see you in a different way outside of the classroom, and you see them at home effectively. And the big legal term, it is, as you say, boil it down, boarding in essence is in loco parentis. So we are legally in the place of the parents. And so that's a huge responsibility that day to day you don't really think about, but actually now and then something will happen. You go, wow, we've got huge responsibility, which is a privilege, but it's quite a weight, And I'll give you an example. A few years ago, parents were dropping off a student for the first time away from home, and the dad said, "Please look after my daughter. She's the most precious thing I have." And you go, okay, I need to make sure I do a good job here. So yeah, day to day you don't think, but it is a real privilege, but it is a pastoral weight, I think, that we carry.
Yeah, and I remember when I first worked with you, your first speech to like new parents and new kids, and you just like ease them in there. It's so nice. Like they're all stressed, they're all panicking, and just a really quick click. Tom does a speech for 30 seconds, and everything's calm. And I think that's the nature of what boarding does for kids and families, and ultimate support for them. But the kids get really good deals out of boarding, I believe. And that's why I really want to speak to you. I'm really interested in your reason for being in education then. And because you could be doing sort of anything, you're in education. Why are you there?
Basically, I feel it's utterly transformational. And I think it's transformational both within the context, but so boarding is kind of holistically transformational when it's done really well. And we talk a lot, don't we, about the whole child and around well-rounded education and what does that mean? But really, how are we developing these young people academically, but also as human beings? And when in a boarding context, you have that wider extended day, you have that opportunity to actually really go back to basic with values, and you can really drive really healthy, productive values and community and empathy, particularly, about being in someone else's shoes. In my current school, it's really international. In fact, all 4 schools I've worked in have been really international, fantastic schools. And so what an absolute benefit for young people and staff to be in a community where there's over 30 different nationalities. Yeah. It's really special. It's a really special thing. It's actually quite hard to bottle sometimes what you have, and you think, well, are all schools kind of selling the same thing? But it's the way that you do it. I think I've grown to believe it's the way in which we do the things that makes the big difference.
Yeah, and I think whenever, again, my experience of working with you in boarding, that there'll be lots of schools in the country that say, oh yeah, we've got 30 nationalities, but it's 30 nationalities where you might only have 60 kids, and you've got 2 of every country, and so you don't therefore have like big groups of Irish people or big groups of English. You have these little pockets, and they I don't know, assimilate really well together, and they work really well. I haven't seen a negative side of boarding when it comes to that element. I would really like to know, Tom, and the reason for doing this podcast is that it's great to know all about you, but what I really want to know is, what is your educational superpower? Because I believe that people in education sometimes struggle to say what they're really, really good at. What are you really, really good at?
Plenty that I'm not, I'm sure. However, and it's not going to reinvent the wheel, I think it's about patience. I think I've become incredibly patient over the course of my career, but I don't think that can be underestimated as well. When I started out, I don't think I was, young, early 20s, wanted to change the world and wanted to do that now. But actually, the power of withholding counsel, sometimes letting people come to you for your opinions and your feedback, really powerful, but also working with young people and colleagues and having that patience. Now, why this is important, I think, as you probably remember, I'm a talker. Naturally, I talk a lot. I did languages and like to talk, like to connect with people, but also I'm a fixer. So if somebody comes to me with a problem, I've probably got 3 or 4 different solutions, and I'm like, I can do it, I can fix it right now. But actually, sometimes people don't need that or want that. Yeah. So it's about having the emotional intelligence to be patient, actually listen and hear somebody. And I think I've had to develop that through nature, through virtue of working with young people who are amazing, but also make mistakes along the way as well as other colleagues, and also get it right and do amazing things. But for me, I think patience can be learnt, and I think it's also underestimated. But patience for me is so, so important.
My next question for you is going to be, can you bring it to life? But I've got a little story that I remember about you. The school that you were at, your office was at the end of a corridor by the main entrance to boarding. And I remember you would sit in there, and I watched once this kid come in "Oh, Mr. Leighton, can I talk to you?" "Yes, you can talk to me." And it was just about football. And I don't think you were the biggest. I don't think you are the biggest football fan in the world. And you were really busy. We had Ofsted coming very soon. In fact, we were deep in the window, past the sell-by date of when Ofsted should be there, and you just stopped everything and you turned and you talked to them about whatever random football conversation. I think it was the kid who was a tennis player from Spain, and you just spoke to him about Real Madrid and Barcelona, and it was just so good because he left 15 minutes later feeling really good about himself, and you were able to do that, and that patience, I've seen that in you. It's really strong. Can you tell me then? I'm just conscious of time, and I do want it to be about 10 minutes. So, if you were to give a piece of advice to someone or the educational global landscape itself, what would that sage advice be?
I think there's a couple of things that spring to mind. One as a linguist, push languages more, and I think we'd see how languages are kind of there's a big agenda there, which I'm not going to go into, but effectively, yeah, languages are so powerful, so enriching as a subject. But I know there's a bigger piece of work there. I think it would be to be authentic, be your authentic self, and not to be ashamed of that. I think young people, students, really can tell if you're being yourself or not, and something I think we worked well together. You know, you've always been unashamedly yourself, I think, and that's a good thing. And being able to be patient, recognize and reflect where things have gone wrong is really powerful. But that authenticity, I think, not that it's lacking, but actually in a time when in many educational settings, you know, teacher shortages and staffing crisis, actually what we need is really authentic people who are going to drive things forward when things get tough, and inevitably they probably will in a school. And I think, given with that, it's about having purpose. But for me, it's always been about a moral purpose driving those decisions in schools.
So the big thing then is, for you, your superpower is patience. Having that ability to learn, to be patient, and ensuring that languages is such a big deal. And actually, my kids, one of them's 11, will say, "What's the point of doing French? I can just get Google out." You should be doing French. That's right. You just need to be doing it. I agree with you. All right, we're closing to the end. We're very close to the end. Is there anything that you want to add, Tom?
Thanks, Noel. I think this is really important for professionals to be able to connect. So if I could be of use or support to anybody who's either thinking about joining boarding, working in boarding, sharing best practice is always really powerful and fun. So be in contact with Noel, and I'm sure you'll connect.
And I think the other thing with boarding is those in the safeguarding world. Boarding and safeguarding are peas in a pod. So I know you're an expert in safeguarding as well. So I would probably also suggest that if anybody wanted to get in contact with you to do with very complex safeguarding issues, of course I can get your details passed on. Tom, thank you so much for being a guest on my Unassuming Heroes podcast.